All right, everybody. I see that according to the official clock here, it is 5:30 on the dot. So I find that we have all of City Council here. So we do have a quorum. And so I call us to order for this Tuesday, June 18th meeting of the Lawrence City Council. We'll begin tonight by an invocation led by Councilor Campbell. We'll say the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll lead us in that. Please stand.
Father, we come before you ever so grateful for who you are and the opportunity that you give us to serve our city. Father, we pray that you would grant us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding as we make decisions for this great city. Lord, we pray that you would be with our soldiers near and far. Bless our state, our city, our land. We honor you, we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. All righty. Have just a few updates for you all, so you and the public know some of the recent goings on in the city. I'll begin with the fact that we celebrate a federal holiday tomorrow on Juneteenth, and so city offices will be closed tomorrow. But we were happy as a community to celebrate Juneteenth this past weekend on Saturday, and really the Friday night leading into it with the cooperation of Main Street. And that was led by a outstanding community organization, participation from members of City Council, including Ms. Campbell, and just the community support for that event was really impressive. So I want to congratulate the members of the committee for all their hard work. I also want to give a shout out to Hunter Holmes, our special events coordinator, and members of our police staff. Several members of city staff worked really hard, and I was proud that it was not just a community organizational effort alone, but something that we could collaborate on and be able to facilitate as a city. So that event went well. We are, of course, in preparations for our July 3rd festivities, which are bearing down upon us and will be here in the next 2 weeks. We're excited about those. Lots to be done. You may have started to see banners and things going up on the streets, poles, and you'll soon see decorations put up. But a lot of work has gone into that. We really look at that as the premier event for the city every year. Last year, it drew roughly 10,000 people to the city of Lawrence. So we looked at the numbers of participants based upon a report we got based upon cell phone data. And roughly, as I recall, 56-57% of folks who attended that celebration were from the Lawrence-Glennon area, but 98% came from all across the upstate, and about 1.5% came from actually out of state. So it's an event that's gaining reputation, a great reputation. We had calls for vendors to participate in this year's celebration from, I think, South Georgia is what Hunter told me. So the fact that word is spreading about things that are going on in the Little Lawrence as far away as southern Georgia is really an exciting thing. So I hope all city council is able to turn out. I hope the community turns out. As I mentioned in my remarks on Saturday at our Juneteenth celebration, from Memorial Day to Flag Day to Juneteenth to July 4th, we are sort of in a season of celebration about our freedoms in this country. And it's a process that is ongoing. And as a city, not only do we hope that our celebrations get better and better, but we hope that we continue to pursue the ideals that are set forth in the Constitution. And so we always want to make sure that that July 3rd celebration is not just about bands and crowds and food trucks, but freedom that we enjoy as Americans and the cost of freedom. So one of the things that's always near and dear to my heart is our veterans recognition and our recognition of our armed forces. And so we'll continue to have that as part of our event this year. And we have a very special honor to give out this year that I look forward to sharing with you that night. But it's, I hope it'll be very meaningful for everybody. I'd be glad to answer questions.
Are you entertainment?
There are a bunch of different bands.
Oh, a bunch of, it's not like it was last year.
Well, the headliner is a band called Bowling for Soup. That's a Grammy-nominated band. They have a pretty devoted following. I went to the doctor the other day, and the nurse that greeted me when I got to the door said, "How did you do it?" And I had absolutely no idea what she was talking about. But what she meant was, how did we get Bowling for Soup to come to Lawrence? So, but we also have opening for them a band called Hard Candied Paranoia, which is a local band that actually features a former city staff member. And then bands earlier that afternoon we'll have, just prior to the Veterans Celebration, Davidson Brass Band, and they'll be presenting more traditional patriotic music. And then prior to that, beginning at 3 that afternoon, we'll have the winners from the Homegrown Music Festival that was held at the Capitol Theater in February. That was a 2-night festival. And so the winners from each of those 2 nights will be performing. So it's a full afternoon of entertainment. We have had some sad announcements about a couple businesses on the square. One is Rudimentary. There's personal things that come up in the life of every family, and without going into further detail than Caleb and Jess shared publicly, we're very sorry to see that loss, but their commitments to the city are being maintained, and so the public can have assurance in that. But beyond that, we had a loss in Palmetto Brothers in their closure, and due to the lack of attention paid by the legislature to fixing the situation with liability insurance and the runaway costs associated with that, not just Lawrence, but long-time community institutions all across the state have closed. Thriving cities like Greenville have lost businesses. Lawrence is not immune, but Lawrence is not alone. And the only reason I say that is because with those 2 announcements coming in relatively short succession, there doesn't need to be the impression that that Lawrence is suffering through any particular period of hardship that is unique to us. We are experiencing some of the things that are happening statewide. But I'm happy to report that we have 3 new restaurants that will be making an announcement very soon of their opening here in Lawrence, in the city limits. In addition to that, we have Big Air, which will also have a restaurant feature to it, which is scheduled to open, I believe, the second week in July, just before we go to the Municipal Association meeting. But that has been long anticipated, at least as far as Big Air goes. The investment they have made in this community is enormous. And so I really hope that the community will repay that investment that they have made in us by supporting that business and all of our other local businesses, because I think whether it's Palmetto Brothers or Rudimentary or anywhere else, we are not guaranteed to have businesses forever and always. We have to do our part. So shopping local and buying local really is somewhat of a civic responsibility. If you can spend those dollars in Lawrence instead of spending them in Greenville, please do your part to do that. I'm saying that not just to council, but to everybody. We are continuing the process of our reaccreditation process with the ISO evaluators. The vote that was taken by City Council at our special called meeting was helpful in being able to present a package to them by June 4th, and that process is ongoing. So as soon as we have further updates on that, I'll be glad to provide that to City Council. We've been spending a lot of time with the fire department doing inspections on new construction. We have a spec building at Hunter Industrial Park that's progressing towards its completion. We have Harper Commons on 221 North, which is tentatively scheduled to have at least a soft opening on July 3rd. My understanding is they've applied for a special events permit for the police department, at least to be open that night. So things are sort of picking up pace. This time of year, we're also spending a lot of time doing our own maintenance. A lot of people don't know that the city owns, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe 400 acres is what the figure that sticks in my memory of land that has to be mowed and maintained by our city crews. So while we maintain our property, I think it's a good time for me to remind everybody that we are nearing the end of the cleanup crackdown amnesty period. We gave people fair warning and a lot of notice to say it's time to clean up your property and do your part. We want to give you the opportunity to do that without facing consequences from the city. But after June 24th, we're making our list and checking it twice. And so we really want to do that because we want to be fair to everybody, to give them an opportunity to clean up. So nobody's getting singled out. But on the flip side, we all got to do our part, and we have laws for a reason. So our city crews are making sure we're prepared to move forward with enforcement after June 24th. I think that's all the remarks I had to make. That's most of what has been occupying our time these days, but every city department is busy, and but we're happy to respond to whatever requests and needs City Council brings to our attention. All right, that brings us to the end of my remarks. we have a public participation and hearing portion of the evening. Because this is a public hearing portion, because we are passing the budget, the normal rules which would apply about applying, or excuse me, not applying, but notifying us 24 hours in advance just to speak would not apply. So at this time, I welcome anybody who is here for public comment to be able to address City Council. Looks like we do have one individual. Mr. Whitmire, if you will, if you'll come to the podium here.
Good afternoon. It's been a while since I've been before you all. First of all, I certainly want to thank God for having an opportunity to come before y'all, and also the support that you all have given Bridging the Gap over the last 10 years. A lot of people gave us 10 months, and it's been coming this September the 22nd, it'll be 10 years Bridging the Gap been doing what they do. I want to bring you an update real quick. Right now, we are doing our summer camp. We got approximately 30 kids, probably right at our max. Kids range between the age of 4K and 12th grade. Well, 4K and 8th grade doing the summer camp. Parents are very involved in our program. We work on the reading, writing, and math, introduce them to foreign language, music. They're actually into agriculture. We planted this morning. It's amazing to see 30 kids out there planting. And we got our greenhouse. We have our greenhouse on campus, and we're utilizing our greenhouse. So the kids are actively involved. We're getting ready for some amazing field trips. If we read about it, we go see about it. So this is Juneteenth. We do Black History 365 days. We try to introduce them to it all the time at our center. Thursday we go to Benjamin Mays Center. Tomorrow we'll be talking about Juneteenth. I want them to know their history. But we like to teach it and instruct it from a positive standpoint, not vindictive, maliciously interpreted or related to our kids. We want them to know the facts, but we do it in love and kindness. And right now, one of our biggest needs is, and I'm coming before you, and I do want to apologize that I did submit my request late. I did. And excuses doesn't excuse, and explanation does not explain. So I own it. But if there's any way possible, what I'm trying to do is put a fence around our facility. We're in the heart of a tough situation. And we have pit bulls around and just trying to keep our kids safe. So I did make a request, although it was late. I hope y'all take it under strong consideration for your final voting, if you will. We do all we can to make sure that we are good stewards of what God has entrusted us. And I believe that the parents, the community is better off with us being there. It's not about me, it's about our staff. We have an amazing staff. Not too many people are going to volunteer 10 years and not get paid. This just generally don't happen, especially dealing with other people's kids. But what I like about this the most is that the impact it has had on kids who are graduating. We have a kid that came through our program. His name is E.J. Grant, just signed with University of South Carolina. He's going to have a send-off this coming Saturday. And he said it meant a lot to him. He taught him how to public speak. That's a big component of our program, is public speaking. It's amazing to see 4K and 5K and second and third grade get up and among their peers, state their position and be able to debate about it. Y'all have to see that. It's amazing. It's amazing. But I challenge them because I know that going forward, it's going to separate them. Good grades, good SAT, ACT scores, but what separate personal skills. Can you relay your message? Can you articulate your thoughts and ideas in a clear, concise form? And we put pressure on them to do it in a loving way, but it comes back and pays dividends. So, I think the program has impacted many people, and it's continuing to impact, and I certainly want to bring that before you today. And again, I own it, that I did submit my request late, so I've owned that. So certainly wanted to thank y'all for giving me the opportunity to come before you all and at least put it out there. And again, thank you for your support over the last several years. I like to think that, again, that it's been well worth it, and the results are there. Our test scores from kids that come through that program are there, and their reading levels are going up, and just being good citizens, being good citizens, okay? So that's all I had to say. Again, appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Whitmire. All righty. There being no one else who is asked to be part of the public hearing process, that brings us to the consent agenda portion of our agenda. There are 3 items on the consent agenda, which is approval of tonight's agenda, approval of the minutes from our regular council meeting of the 28th, and approval of our special called meeting of June 3rd.
I make a motion that we approve of
Mr.
our.
Mayor, I'm sorry. Mr. Mayor, I want to request that, item 1, 2, and 3 be removed from the consent agenda.
All right. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. The items are removed from the consent agenda and would be voted, excuse me, let me have a vote on that. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of removing the items from the consent agenda and placing them in order on the regular agenda to be voted upon individually, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. All righty. That being the case, the items of the consent agenda will be addressed each one in turn. So, first item before us is approval of the agenda for tonight. All those, are there any motions concerning the approval of tonight's agenda?
I make a motion to approve tonight agenda with the said separation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approval of tonight's agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And the agenda is approved. Second item before us is approval of the minutes from the regular council meeting of May 28th. Do I hear any motions concerning those minutes?
I need to make a correction to the minutes.
All right.
The minutes did not include, let me see. The minutes did not include the question concerning, the bridging the gap situation. It's not included in the minutes. The question was about submission of the late fee, and, we had also asked a question about if there was a process, and it's not in the minutes.
There's a motion to amend the minutes to reflect questions regarding bridging the gap. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Ms. Campbell, that's the second time I've done it.
It's the second time.
3 strikes and I'm out. Ms. Sullivan, excuse me. The way, obviously, these are relatively brief minutes compared to the length of any given meeting. Minutes are not intended to be a transcription
Yes.
of all proceedings. So, I just say in defense of the city clerk, because no action was taken on that, I understand why that was not included.
Yes,
for my part, I have no objection to amending the minutes to reflect the proceedings if that is council's wish. But just, as I said, in defense of the clerk, because that wasn't an action item, I don't feel particularly strongly one way or the
Just
other.
wanted to make sure Ms. Latimer asked the question and wanted to make sure it was in here. So if somebody wanted to reference back and say, well, she didn't speak up, she did speak up.
Well, I did ask the question.
Right, yeah. So
It's
that's why,
not included in the
it's not
minutes.
included in the minutes. I just want to make sure it's in there.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan, I
Yes, sir.
appreciate that. Is there any further discussion? And so, do you have some specific language that you are suggesting be added to?
Yes, sir. Counselor Latimer asked the question concerning bridging the gap. And then we also stated, she also asked, was it a procedure? And that it was late, and she wanted to make it a reference for her constituents so that it could be counted upon as she was representing her citizen.
All right, so we have a motion, and second, we have proposed language. I want to make sure everybody's clear on what we're voting on. To amend the minutes under the new business section in the discussion concerning the budget workshop relating to the fact that Councilor Lattimore raised the issue regarding whether or why a specific appropriation was not made to bridging the gap. And the process
Right.
for
Submission.
submission.
Mhm.
And I think that covers it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we have the motion, second, that is the proposed amendment. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of amending amending the minutes as moved, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed, no. It appears the ayes have it, and the minutes should be amended and approved as modified. All right. Moving on, we have approval of the minutes from the special called meeting of June 3rd.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes as from the special call meeting from June the 3rd.
Mr. Mayor, I have a correction for the minutes.
All right. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and I believe Ms. Sullivan has a motion.
Thank y'all for being patient with me. I'm trying to learn. Yes, sir. In the minutes, I asked a question concerning, let's see, legal counsel, because it does not specify who the legal counsel is in the ordinance. It does say the mayor, and the mayor is the chief officer of this town, so he's obligated to do so. However, in a friendly manner, I'm requesting that, the minutes be updated because this reference was for, a protection, not, an attack. The ordinance read as if, it'll be a dual, procedure, but I know it will not, but the ordinance does not reflect what it should say. So in the minutes, I asked two questions, and the question was, who would be providing the legal counsel? And then I asked, the mayor about the ordinance reading as such. So I would like that to be added to the minutes. I'm sorry for the confusion.
All right, so let me make sure I understand.
Yes, sir.
And properly restate your motion, so please correct me if I'm wrong, okay?
Okay,
My understanding, Councilor Sullivan, is that you're moving to amend the minutes
yes, sir.
of the special called meeting under the item of new business to reflect the fact that you raised a question regarding whether or not I would be, as mayor, who happens to be an attorney, acting in a dual representation role on behalf of the city. And you sought clarification from that from me, and I clarified that I would not be.
Right, and it's not in here.
Is that an accurate statement of your proposed
Yeah, and
amendment?
and the other question was who specifically is our legal counsel, because it does not, say who our legal counsel is, or who you would be referring to
All right.
in the ordinance.
All right, so the second proposed, would you like to suggest both of those amendments
Yes, sir.
as one motion, or would you like to handle them individually?
One motion.
As one motion?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So the second part of the proposed amendments from Ms. Sullivan would be to reflect the fact that Ms. Sullivan asked who the city's legal counsel was.
Mhm.
And I assume my answer is that it would be Pope and Flynn.
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay. All right. So that is the motion before us. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion about the proposed amendments to the minutes? All right, hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approval of the motion to amend the minutes as requested by Ms. Sullivan, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. And the minutes are amended as approved and as amended. All righty. That takes us through the items that were formerly on the consent agenda to the items that are on the old business agenda. Before we move on to that, I'll just say, Ms. Sullivan, I appreciate you keeping us accurate in our records, and there's never any harm in making sure we're doing our job by making sure those minutes are correct. All righty. The first item of old business before us tonight is ordinance 5-24-1, which is an ordinance to and for the levy of taxes for the city of Lawrence for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2024, and ending June 30th, 2025. The city budget for this coming fiscal year beginning July 1st. Do I hear any motions concerning ordinance 5-24-1?
I make a motion, that we accept this ordinance, with corrections, for the date of July the 1st, 2024 to June 30, 2025. That's what mine's reading. Your fiscal date. And then the council member, the body, it says 4 council members and a mayor. It should be 6 council members and a mayor.
Ms. Sullivan, first, just as a point of order, I believe what we need to do is have a motion to approve on first reading the budget, and then once we get to discussion, if there are any proposed amendments to be made, similar to the way we did it with the approval of the minutes.
Thank you.
We'll deal with amendments in turn.
Okay.
So, would you wish to amend your motion to approve the budget on first reading?
I do.
Or second reading, excuse me?
Make a motion to amend my error of correction.
So
For
let-
ordinance number 5-24-1.
So, before, just to be clear, before we get to amendments, there needs to be a motion and a second to approve on second reading.
Okay,
And then, once there's a motion and a second, and we get into discussion, then we can discuss any proposed amendments, all right?
thank you.
All right, so I guess my question to you is, you made a motion to approve with amendments. We
So-
can't vote on that unless we know what the proposed amendments are and those have been approved by voting on those individual amendments.
Okay,
So as a point of order, what I'm humbly suggesting to you would be that you might amend your motion to approve on second reading. If there's a second to that, then we can open the floor for discussion, considering any amendments. Would you like to move?
I do.
All right, we have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
All right. Having a motion and a second, we now open the floor for discussion. I understand there may be some suggested amendments.
Yes, sir. Okay,
Ms. Sullivan?
yes, sir. I just see, it says that mayor, council member, and the mayor and 4 council members under the second whereas, and it should be 6 council members and the mayor.
So, council, I believe, if I'm following Ms. Sullivan, on page 1, on the, you have the title of the ordinance, and then on the second paragraph, there does appear to be a typographical error, clerical error that indicates 4 council members. That should be 6.
And then,
But if you will, let's vote on them in turn. We have a motion to amend 4 to 6, correct that typographical errors. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Typo.
Hearing none, all those in favor of amendment as proposed, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. And that error is corrected. Thank you, Ms. Sullivan, for the catch. All right, any further proposed amendments?
yes, sir.
If you will please tell us what page, what paragraph.
Yes, sir. So page 1, paragraph 3, it just reads July 1st. It doesn't have the date, the year of the month. So that need to be updated to the year. I think that's important to be, in the minutes.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Ms. Sullivan, I would point out that, just as a matter of clarification, the code of, the South Carolina Code requires city council to adopt a budget for each fiscal year. Our fiscal year is defined as July 1st to June 30th.
Yes,
That part does not change from year to year.
okay,
So that paragraph is correct.
gotcha.
The next paragraph says that in accordance with that section of state law, the mayor's prepared a budget, presented fiscal year 2024-25. So that should provide the clarification that you're seeking.
Yes, sir.
But just as a matter of clarity, the paragraph which you're proposing to change does not change from year to year, because our fiscal year always runs from July 1st to June 30th.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion or questions? We have a motion and a second, which requires a vote. Are all those in favor of amending as proposed, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no? No. I believe the noes have it on a 4-3 vote. Mr. Bolt?
No.
Mr. Lowry?
No.
Aye, and Ms. Campbell vote no. Therefore, the amendment fails. All righty. Are there any further proposed revisions?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okey dokey. We have a budget before us with a corrected typographical error, which has been addressed by amendment of council. With that said, and there being no further amendments to the budget proposed, is there any further discussion?
It is. Mr. Mayor, I would like to, for council to, I want to piggyback off of, what the director from Bridging the Gap was stating. For us to take in consideration, to provide him what he requested, and also remember that I don't think we have any other, is it literacy programs for children, in the city of Lawrence, specifically in the minority district. And I'm hoping that council would place what he needs, for this fiscal year.
We have a motion to amend the budget to grant or unspecified request of funds to Bridging the Gap. Is there a second?
I second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Yes, discussion. The motion, as you stated, was unspecified. So what really should be, it should be a monetary amount that it should be, rather than unspecified.
Well,
So we're going to amend that, we need to know amount.
that's accurate, Ms. Miller. So council is aware, I actually had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Whitmire, last week. And I explained that we have to have a certain sort of standard set of rules that everybody has to play by. Because at some point, if we don't sort of draw the line for what is before city council and how we should allocate the money throughout the year, it makes it very difficult for us to conduct a budget workshop effectively and know how to allocate between all the obligations that the city has. And so because that request was made late, it wasn't before city council and wasn't sort of baked into the number that is before council. As I understand it, although a request was made by Mr. Whitmire after the fact, that doesn't mean that the city can't, through other means, provide support for that organization. If the budget itself is to be amended, the ordinance itself is to be amended, we can't just tack on more spending without coming up with a source of revenue to match it, because by state law, we have to have a balanced budget. So that either means cutting something from another line item that city council has approved, or finding a new source of revenue that we have not identified to pay for a new amount. And although there was a request made from Mr. Whitmire in written communication after the fact, after the budget workshop, in his comments tonight, nor in the motion made by Ms. Sullivan before council, was there a specific dollar amount to add to the budget. No reference to where the money would come from, and no whether it be new revenue or reallocation from existing line item. So, Ms. Miller, you're absolutely correct. In order to amend the budget, there has to be an amendment by a specific number, and we don't have that specific number, at least in the motion that's been presented. With that said, I would direct city council to the page 3 of the proposed budget ordinance in section 6. So the mayor as designee shall administer the budget and may authorize the transfer of appropriations within the allotments heretofore established and necessary to achieve the goals of the budget. Provided, however, that no such transfer shall be used to increase the total appropriation within any fund. So, with that said, with that in mind, what I explained to Mr. Whitmire at our meeting last week was, within the budget as approved, within the line items as approved by City Council, as laid out at our city budget workshop, there are funds which would allow us to support that organization at the level that we have supported in years past. And that can be done within those existing line items and do not require a budget amendment to do it. The only difference between those two things practically would be if City Council is specifically stating that they wish to support bridging the gap, then the city administrator and I, by law, because of the priorities of the budget, would be required to send that line item to bridging the gap. However, the same thing could be accomplished through line items which are more discretionary. Mainly, the one that comes to mind is the, I may get the exact name wrong, city administrator can help me with this, but we have a line item where when city council has priorities like sending flowers to someone of significance to the community who's passed away, or we wish to support various causes throughout the year, buy tables at banquets and things like that. That sort of pool of funds has been used to support the priorities of council as they are communicated to the administrator. And so if it is council's wish to allocate some of those funds, or have those directed to bridging the gap, we're more than happy to accommodate that. And that would be in keeping with section 6 on page 3, which allows that to happen. The main thing is that those monies are spent in a way that it advances the goals of council. So, the concern I have is we have to be concerned with precedent, and I explained that to Mr. Whitmire as well. If we take this special action for this one particular community group, which admittedly is a outstanding community group and benefit our community, benefit the city, we should be well prepared for what will happen in future years when other organizations don't come forth in a timely manner and ask for budget appropriations that are not provided for and haven't been considered by council at budget workshop. And when we have an opportunity to look at the budget as a whole and determine whether it is in the community's best interest to pull funds from this department and put them towards that community priority.
Yes, ma'am.
If you will, I'd just like to finish my comments. I am very concerned, not that we won't find a way of supporting a great organization in the community. That can easily be done. If city council were to approve this amendment, I believe it sets a terrible precedent and sets us up for a lot of trouble down the road. Because any Johnny-come-lately could come out of the woodwork and say, we didn't ask on time, but we'd like our money now, please.
Yes, ma'am, may I make a reference to your statement? Isn't
Yes,
that
miss.
what the meetings are for us to do stuff like that? And then two, What other literacy program do we have in the minority areas for children? Is there any more?
Ms. Sullivan, to your point, as I said, the issue is not whether it's a great organization or whether it brings value to the community, or even whether we can support them as a city, because under Section 6 on page 3, under my executive authority, I can reallocate funds within this budget without being amended, without setting a bad precedent that achieves that goal. The reverse is not true. If the budget is amended, we don't know how much it's amended by, because your motion didn't state a dollar amount. And it also doesn't change the revenue side to show where that money's coming from.
I can amend the motion and put a dollar amount.
Ms. Miller?
So, in being said, in all reality, for what you just explained to us, it can be done from what you just said. So I'm in agreement to go with that, what you just said, because see, we will definitely be setting a precedent if we go ahead on and amend as we discussing now. So long as he get once you find out the dollar amount that he's asking for, then you can go to work that. But we did have, I don't know how much we had in the budget for him, but he does have something in the budget. But with the amendment, what you just explained to us, I'm in agreement with it.
Thank you, Ms. Miller.
No,
Just to be
security.
clear, the intent here is not to punish anybody or to not support the good things in the community, but we have to do things in good and proper order. Ms. Sullivan, to your point, this meeting certainly can involve amendments, and I think you've seen that we've made some that you suggested tonight. Happy to do that. But if we're amending the budget, we can't just add on expense and not come up with the money up somewhere on the revenue side. And if we did that, we would be violating state law. But I hear what I generally feel like is a consensus of council, that we want to support the good things that are happening in our community, and I'm happy to do that under my authority.
Mr. Mayor, I agree with what you have proposed. Sounds like you've given us a fix for the situation. I do have a question, because I frankly don't know. Is there where is the opportunity to ask the city for funds? Where is that posted, and is the deadline in that posting?
That's a good question. So the budget workshop is a public meeting, and it is posted in accordance with FOIA requirements every year. The public is invited to attend, the press is invited to attend. The budget workshop is the thing. It in itself becomes the deadline,
Okay.
because if we can't consider it, if it's not before us as a request, then how do we work the numbers to make sure that the revenue side equals the expenditure side?
So the public should, from this point on, for those who are unclear, including me, that the deadline, how much time would you need before that workshop? Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Delgado, would you mind chipping in?
Mr. Mayor, I would advise all,
Would you please, Professor?
excuse me, I'm not used to this new fancy technology. I would advise all organizations to be on the spot and get their requests in as soon as the new year comes in. Because there's a lot of planning that goes in just to bake in something to present to council in the budget workshop. But I would say by April, first would probably be, if you want it in some sort of budgeted form at the workshop. But like the mayor said, anyone can come to these workshops, they can participate, they can add an input, and that's the time where y'all, kind of kick back ideas and decide on what you want to do, because that's all your discretion and not mine.
And I'll just say for the record, Mr. Whitmire, I appreciate the maturity and responsibility that you showed in taking accountability for the untimeliness of that request. But, so I don't mean to sound like I'm kicking a man while he's down, but the Bridging the Gap has requested funds on a regular basis. We have supported them on a regular basis. But we don't do that automatically. So we can't, as a council, just sort of assume that people are deserving of public funds if they haven't even asked for it. So the procedure this year and the timing of this year is exactly in line with the way it has been every year. Because we prepare the budget in February, March. We have the budget workshop in April. We have first reading in May. We have second reading in June, and a brand new budget starts in July, every year.
And it's been like that. I mean, everybody that know that they want funds, I guess we take it for granted, but it's good to have it in writing. But for the time frame that you just said, but since I've been on council, always, anybody who know they want to have a budget request, it's in by the time we get ready to have our budget workshop. I mean, but it's good to have it in writing. You didn't know, but it's good, those that in the future would know. But however, it's been like traditionally like that ever since I've been on council 20+ years.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Whitmire, with all due respect, I gotta keep order and the time for public comments ever. So, is there any further discussion from council on the matter?
Well, Mayor,
Mr. Ball?
I think you covered it well, and I think it's always been done. Everybody knows that they're supposed to have, it's a form that they're supposed to present to show their budget and where their spending is in order for us to make the decisions on what we can do. And that's the way it's always been. And I think you covered it real well. If we approve this budget, he can come before the council at any time and ask, and if there's funds available that we can help, we can help. But we have no idea right now what that event might cost and how much he's asking for. And that's something that we need to know before we can say, yeah, we can help you. Because, we might say, yeah, we can go ahead and do it. Then they might come up with a big amount and say, well, but anyway, I think you covered it real well. And I'll agree with what Ms. Miller said, that if we can approve this, then we can go back and look at it after the budget is made.
There are, thank you, Mr. Bull, there are line items which are more and less specific. And I think we already have baked into this budget, already based upon the decisions that City Council made, or the work that City Council came together to do at the workshop. There are line items that would not have to be amended that allow us to support good causes. And that has been our tradition. When we just for example, when our former city administrator passed away and we sent funds, we bought flowers as a remembrance, we didn't have to amend the budget to do that. There's a line item existing in the budget for us to be able to do things like that. Similarly, I don't see any reason why, if that is the priority of council, what I'm generally hearing it is, we can spend those funds within that line item and we don't get into an issue of setting a really dangerous precedent.
Well, didn't you say that you could go ahead and do that within what we've already got without going over our budget or whatever. It would be within the budget if you go ahead and straighten that out.
That is correct. Thank you. Yes. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Sullivan?
It's okay.
All right. So we do have a motion to amend the budget for an unspecified amount, and that does require a vote. If there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor of amending the budget as Ms. Sullivan moved, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no? No.
No.
I believe noes have it, and the budget is not amended. Alrighty. That takes us to final, are there any further amendments to the budget ordinance? Any proposed amendments? Hearing no further amendments proposed, we have a motion for approval on second reading and a second. All those in favor of approval of the budget on second reading, please indicate saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, no. And the budget is approved. All righty. That takes us to the second item of new business, which is an ordinance which authorizes me to enter into an agreement with Lawrence County that modifies the service territory for Lawrence Fire Department with Lawrence County. This is before council for second reading.
I make a motion, we accept ordinance 6-24-1 on second reading.
Second motion.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of passage of the ordinance on second reading, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, no. And the ordinance is approved unanimously. All righty, that takes us to new business. You just thought you were having fun. All righty.
Can't wait to hear this one.
All righty. So, the motion, at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve an amended and restated promissory note and assignment and assumption agreement for the Octagon House.
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there any second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. I bet we got some discussion.
I'm laughing because
I didn't think the city
I know that's going house been out there.
owned it. As long as it's been there.
All right, so
Time we get this money, we'll all be gone.
I'll give you the briefest of brief histories. All right, so 619 East Main Street, the Zelotes Homes house, otherwise known as the Octagon House, was built in 1859. It holds the distinction of being the first concrete house in the state of South Carolina. It is very closely tied to city-owned property because the Holmes Spring, which is sort of the corner triangular lot that the city owns, right next to the old railroad trestle where the river track sign is painted, was called Holmes Spring because that property once connected to the Octagon House property and it was all part of one large farm. Mr. Holmes was a Presbyterian minister. He served as a professor at the Lawrenceville Female College, and he was a pastor at Rocky Springs Presbyterian out in the country, where I heard some sins, went to church. And so
SENN.
SENN. There's lots of good jokes that have been made about it over the years.
I heard that.
But by the mid to late 80s, the Octagon House was in bad shape. And I'm probably preaching to the choir with Mr. Bolt and Ms. Miller because they were around in 1997 when the State Housing Finance and Development Authority issued a loan for the purchase of the property. And from what I understand, because the property was dilapidated, the SCSHFDA issued this loan so that the property could be bought and rehabilitated out of its dilapidated state in exchange for its use as a affordable housing center location. For some reason, although we did not come up with the money, under this program, the city of Lawrence is the one who gets the money repaid. We get the payoff of the mortgage when the mortgage is repaid. Therein lies the catch. There were under the loan terms, no payments had to be made on the loan for the first 30 years.
Please give me one of those loans.
That's all.
So to restate, the people that didn't lend the money get repaid the money for a house they didn't own and had no interest in, but only after 30 years. So the first payments that would ordinarily be due to the city were scheduled to be made in 2027, so not for another 3 years. But, and you got another twist, those payments wouldn't be made to us at all if there wasn't positive cash flow, if they didn't have profit. If they're running a deficit, even though we waited 30 years for it, we still wouldn't see any dollars. So it is our understanding that the cash flow for that facility at this time is not yielding profit, or at least any significant profit, which would lead us to get any payments in 3 years. Under the terms of the loan, just to make it more interesting, not only did they wait to make the first payment start for 30 years, after another 40 years, so payments begin in 2027, in 2067, there would be a balloon payment to pay off the entire balance if nothing had been paid by that point. But if they ask really nicely and say pretty please, upon request of the borrower, that could be extended out a further 20 years until the year 2087.
We won't be here.
Which would be roughly 101 years after Mr. Bolt got on city council.
I hope I'm around again.
We're gonna sprinkle that money. Say, here's the money, Johnny. You finally got it.
It'll be rotten then.
That the reason this is before city council now is because that property is being sold. It is being sold. A new buyer wants to buy the property. Obviously, they would be bound by the terms of the loan, and everything that goes along with it. But in order for that sale to happen, there has to be an assignment of the responsibilities of the loan, an assumption of the responsibilities of the loan by the new buyer. To the extent the loan was made to make sure that there was affordable housing, this is good news because the person that had to provide affordable housing before is gonna have to provide affordable housing after, because they have to assume the terms of the loan as it was made. But because we are the payee and looking for our payday in 2087, if not before, we would have to approve the agreement to assign the note and for the new buyer to assume the obligations of the agreement. The SCA, try that one more time. The SHFDA has already approved this from the state side. They just need our vote to approve it from our side.
Oh, the people that gave the money have already approved for it to be sold.
The people that gave the money,
Okay. So, but they
that's
just
being
need
repaid
our.
to us, yes.
Oh, okay.
He said, oh, sure.
So we
You
didn't
sell
put
it
nothing
between
in
you,
it,
but
so
we
we
don't get
not
our
getting
money.
nothing out.
You don't
That's
get
correct. We don't have a nickel in it.
Yeah, we're not getting a nickel.
Oh, not getting the nickel.
None of the, I can safely say, none of the people sitting at this table will get anything out of it.
We won't see it.
Well, aren't they,
All right, so let's
Are
get
you
this
through
thing
with yours?
approved, because we're not gonna have anything to do with it anyway.
That is my explanation.
right.
The only thing I remember basically when that was going on was that, it had to they had to do it back in their same structure. They had to build those apartments within the occupant house to meet the same standard. And then they had to build the ones on the back that would correspond and blend in with them.
That's right.
And so that's basically what I remember when we were talking about that Oscar house, because it, I went in
It was
before,
beautiful.
but before they ever, before they ever started it, because, we was all kids on the mill village over there. But that's what we did to
Used to
save
be
the
a haunted
building.
house in there every year.
yeah, cause I know that.
I remember that.
Huh?
Used to be the haunted house in there.
Sure
Yeah.
did.
They used to,
Well, actually, there's a dungeon down in the back of it.
Yeah,
and,
it is.
And that's how rumors get started.
They didn't do anything for the basement.
So
That's where all the paperwork's housed for this.
Yeah, 'cause
Oh,
I bought
let's
mine
get this.
for
And I,
$6.
All right.
And it survived the war, and so
Yeah, I remember
you know.
that, the honey
I'm
house.
like, Martin, we didn't put anything in, so we're not getting nothing out, so let's move this right here and go and vote for it.
But now
Put
the
the
people
motion
that's
on the
living
floor.
out there, are they paying rent?
I'd like to
Yes,
make a
ma'am.
motion. You ready for a motion?
Have we already
We
voted?
have a
already
motion and a second.
Yeah.
Let's vote.
Yeah,
All we need is a vote.
yeah.
So, is there any further discussion?
Hold on,
Lord,
I only have one question.
no.
When city council was considering this in 1997, did somebody tell y'all we weren't gonna get paid back till 2087?
No, just remember when you put it on the ground.
I think we were such a hurry to get it redone because it was a very sore eye.
No, I'm just joking. No doubt,
No.
it's a good thing. It's been a good thing. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion to approve the restated promissory note and assignment and assumption agreement, please indicate saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. And the motion is approved unanimously. That brings us to, at long last, the end of the budget. Everybody's smiling, happy. And so I turn to our Mayor Pro Tem.
Your Honor, I would like to make a motion.
We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Hearing no objections, we are adjourned. Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play?
I almost got killed in that.
All right, do we have a trash can in here yet?
Kids.
Really?
Yeah, with two
Trash can.
kids hooking